So guys, I got into non-duality for practical purposes. My intellect loves all this knowledge, but it has ultimately served a purpose, which is I wanted to end my suffering in this life. And if it helps with reincarnation or a heaven, that's a bonus. But I wanted to end suffering here and now. I was sick of living life thinking I'm a person living a life, making decisions, feeling proud when I did the right thing, feeling regretful when I did the wrong thing, fearing the future, regretting the past. It's so tiring. Also that feeling of, I'm not good enough. What's the meaning of life? All those, feelings. I'm sure you're experiencing it or have experienced it. So that's why I got into non-duality, practical purposes. And in this video, I'm hopefully going to show you how to do that. There are 3 pillars of inner peace I found and of living with the flow of life. The first pillar, non-dual knowledge. Second pillar, realizing free will is an illusion, which kind of ties into the first pillar, by the way. The third one is mindfulness. Now, why is realizing your true self so important? Because if you truly think and feel you're just this person, this guides your actions. What you truly hold as a belief, and it is a belief, by the way, if you truly believe like most people, I'm a person living a life, all your actions and thoughts spring out of that belief of separation. But when you solve that fundamental error, that you're not ultimately a person living a life that's freely making decisions, all your actions and thoughts are going to slowly be guided by that knowledge once it's firmly anchored in the intellect. And again, that is what non-dual knowledge is for, the intellect. A lot of people say, I thought spirituality is meant to be about going beyond language, beyond knowledge. What's all this talking? Because Advaita Vedanta is the path of knowledge. Your intellect has faulty knowledge that needs to be corrected. And then yes, you don't need to think about it anymore. I don't go around life constantly talking about this. I live life like a regular person. I only unleash it all in these YouTube videos. Even now, I don't need to read non-dual literature or hear non-dual lectures anymore. If I do read it or hear it, it's out of just a sense of enjoyment. I'm not learning anything new. It's just like listening to your favorite music. You've heard the song a million times, you just like it. But in the beginning stages, of course, you're listening and reading this stuff to really understand it. Once it sinks in, it's just pure enjoyment. But in any case, your mind needs to realize the truth, non-dual truth. The intellect needs to be satisfied that your true self has non-objective qualities. That's why you need to do as much self-inquiry as you need to intuit this truth about yourself. I'm not going to do self-inquiry in this video. I've got a non-duality for beginners playlist, or there's plenty of videos out there on self-inquiry. But you need to realize your true self prior to time, prior to space, prior to causation. If this reality is 4 dimensions, 3 dimensions of space, 1 dimension of time, consciousness is the 5th dimension then. It can't be comprehended with the mind. Your true self is the 5th dimension then. You need to intuit that, but realize you can never know it like you know anything in this objective reality. If you could experience it, you could then ask, then what knows that? You know that. Your true self is incomprehensible, unfathomable. That's why it's stunning once it sinks in. Always safe, performs no action. Your true self. You need to intuit this. And don't make that an identity. That's what Neo-Advaita does. That's why they always say, no one here, nothing to do. Don't do spiritual practice. Don't read spiritual books. You've made it an identity. What realizing your true self is really meant to be doing is opening up another dimension to your being. Non-dual means all-inclusive, which means include the feeling, I feel like a person. Include the realization, I'm the pure witness. But ultimately, don't take these as concepts. If my hands were truth, the fabric of all reality, no matter how I mold them, it's truth. This is truth, this is truth, this is truth. See, if this configuration was, I'm a person living a life, true. If this configuration is, I'm the pure witness, no one here, nothing to do, true. But it's as true as this, isn't it? It's as true as this, it's as true as Christian thinking, Muslim thinking, Jewish thinking. That's why, again, I said, all this is doing is opening up another dimension to your being. So you can flip between the two, realize both are true, both are false. Your true self is pure consciousness. Your egoic self is reflected consciousness. There's a division, pure, reflected, but my hands are made of truth. So ultimately, it's all one. What I'm getting at, guys, with this long-winded explanation is, to sum it up, feel like a person living a life? Feel like you've got a problem? You need a solution. Feel like there's right and wrong? Do what's right. But I just thought I'd go off onto this little explanation for the neo-Advaitins out there. They quickly run to the ultimate, but I'm just saying you're making it an identity. Use this non-dual knowledge as opening up another dimension. Yes, you are the pure witness. Yes, you perform no action. Reality is happening in 4 dimensions. 3 dimensions of space, 1 dimension of time. Your consciousness is the 5th dimension. Just intuit that. Then come back to, I'm a person living a life. And that's where we'll continue on with this video. But it is important, realizing your true self. Once that's done, how does this egoic self, fake self, shadow self, if your true self is the light, this person is the shadow, how is it meant to find peace and happiness living through this life? The first step, free will is a big one, guys. Swami Vivekananda, great quote. Free will is a contradiction of terms. Your freedom itself and will happens at the level of causation. Your true self is free, performs no action, total freedom. This egoic self is operating under the laws of causation, cause and effect, physics. Everything you think and feel had a prior cause, which leads to actions. Then those actions cause more thoughts and feelings. I'm not going to convince you about free will. Look at who's some popular speakers. Sam Harris. I can't even think of any more. There's a lot out there. But basically, from a scientific point of view, you don't have free will. Research it. From the neuroscience point of view, you don't have free will. Research it. Spirituality. Read spiritual texts. From the spiritual point of view, no free will. And this isn't to make you feel miserable, guys. Once it truly clicks, that life is just a flow of experience, you're going to feel so much freer as this person. You're ultimately always free, but as this egoic self, there's going to be such a sense of freedom. I've heard people say in my comments, if this was true, I wouldn't want to feel like living. But for me, it doesn't make me feel like that. I treat life like a movie for many reasons. That's why I always talk about we're like movie characters. I treat life like a movie I haven't seen before. Do you go to a movie you haven't seen before and say to yourself, hang on, why am I even watching this? This is all scripted. All the lines are predetermined. I don't want to watch this. No. You go to watch a movie because you don't know what they're going to say next. You don't know what they're going to do next. You laugh and cry along with the characters. You get involved in the story. So I view my life like a movie. I know ultimately it's happening under the laws of cause and effect. This egoic self is being swayed by the laws of cause and effect. But my true self is the quote unquote witness of this person living a life. And I'm fascinated. Each and every day, I don't know what I'm going to do, say, think. I don't even know the topics of these videos. They just appear to me, what to make. I'm in a state of constant flow, a state of unknowing. That's why so many people are miserable. Remember when you were a kid? I love doing this example, if you've seen me do it a few times. A kid is in a state of wonder. Their face is like this. What? I just like doing that. I find any excuse to do that. Why is the kid so open and happy? Because they don't know. They know that they don't know. And if you're a baby, you don't even think that. Just openness. And when they're a bit older, they just know that they don't know. That's why life is a miracle. But then the face of a child goes from this to this. Why does the eyebrows contract in? Why do the eyes look up and down, judging everyone and everything as we get older, teenager and older? That's because we think we know something about life. You had no conditioning. All this conditioning comes. Now you're seeing reality through your conditioning, thinking that's real, thinking life's boring, life's meaningless, I've seen it all, done it all, I've got free will. You're seeing life through your conditioning, you think you know it all, that's why you're miserable. So when you truly realize you don't have free will, when you treat life like a movie, that it's just in a flow, your face is slowly going to go, back to this. Now, you can never return to the state of a child. Well, maybe you can if you're highly spiritually advanced. But what I'm saying is, pre-egoic self is this. Egoic self is this. Post-egoic self would be, again, like somewhere in the middle. That's another thing I should mention. All this ego bashing. Kill the ego, destroy the ego. The ego serves a purpose. The ego makes this one undivided reality appear separate. It's no issue. No problem. It's an illusion. That's another thing people get caught up in. An illusion, once you see it's an illusion, it still continues. You just don't believe in it anymore. It's like the Wizard of Oz. Oz, in the Wizard of Oz, was a powerful character. Everyone was scared of him. When it was revealed he's just a guy behind a curtain, he could still put on a big show, speak with a deep voice, but no one took him seriously anymore. It's the same with our ego. It's the same with the feeling of free will. When you realize the ego is an illusion, once you clearly see it, you're like, oh, it's an illusion. It still continues. It just can't hurt you anymore. When you realize, I feel like I've got free will, but don't truly have it, the feeling of free will continues. But you just think, oh, I don't have it. Life is a flow of experience. I'm playing out my conditioning. Others are playing out their conditioning. We live in a society. We live in a movie where we're all pretending we have free will. So we all have to reward and punish each other accordingly. See, when I do the right thing, I get rewarded. But I don't claim credit, ultimately. When I do the wrong thing, I'm punished. But I don't feel too bad because I think I've done the wrong thing by society standards. So it gives you this deep level of peace, acceptance, compassion for yourself and others. And again, with violent criminals, treat them like wild animals. They need to be removed from society. They're like a wild animal. You don't freely swim with sharks that are vicious. You don't freely go into a tiger's cage at the zoo. You don't freely hang around psychopaths. Some people are programmed for evil, that we call evil. Lock them up. Destroy them if you're in a country that does that. But you can do it in a way where you think they couldn't control that, but we need to remove them. That's the biggest key to your inner peace. I feel like even if you haven't seen through the illusion of your ego, free will is the biggest to get you into a state of flow. And again, when you treat life like a movie, it's not going to be boring. You're going to be excited, living in a state of wonder. What's going to happen next? You literally don't know how your life is going to turn out. You think you've got an idea? How often do things change? I've heard so many people say, if you asked me 5-10 years ago, I'd be doing this, I wouldn't have believed you. That's true of everyone. So that's the second thing. What was the first? Realize your true self through non-dual knowledge. That's so important. Second thing, see through the illusion of free will. And also remember, just because it's an illusion, it still feels like you have it. So freely do the right thing. Freely do spiritual practice. Freely be a nice person. Freely do all the things you're supposed to be doing. And of course, I know what's going to happen. You're freely not going to do those things. Because I know. There's so many things I should be freely doing, but I don't. Because I know ultimately I don't have it. But I still feel like I have it, so why aren't I freely doing it? Paradoxical thinking. But really intuit that. Intuit your true self. Intuit that you don't have free will. That's going to give you so much peace and freedom. That's going to get you into the flow state. Here's the final tip. Meditation/mindfulness. What's it for then? My true self performs no action. My true self is an illusion. What's all this meditation and mindfulness for then? It's for this egoic self, the shadow self. I've just told you how to live in a flow state. Once you grasp those two ideas, this is not truly me. This person operates under the laws of cause and effect. Where should the attention of this person go? I mentioned at the start, there's pure consciousness and reflected consciousness. Pure consciousness is like floodlights. You know when you turn on floodlights, it just lights up a whole area. You can't direct it anywhere. Reflected consciousness is like a spotlight that can be directed. Where does our reflected consciousness usually be directed? Thinking. We always like to point it up at our head. Thinking about life. What's mindfulness? Turning it into the body. Focus on your breath. Focus on your feelings. We do it a little bit, back to thinking. Back to thinking. So once these teachings have intellectually sunk in, you're convinced intellectually, I have no free will, my sense of self is an illusion. What do we do with all this attention that was caught up in thinking, I am a person, making decisions, judging others, feeling proud, envious, all those egoic thought patterns? Where do we put it now? Where do we focus it? Mindfulness, feeling of existence. That is where I put my attention. If you want to know where my attention is most of the time, where it's anchored, before spirituality, here. Shoulda, coulda, woulda, I'm a person living a life. I'm so regretful of this, I'm so proud of that. I'm better, I'm worse. It goes into just here now. Why are you safe to put it here now? The feeling of existence. Because the intellect has been satisfied. Once the intellect is satisfied, my true self is safe. This is an appearance, this egoic self. This egoic self has no free will. Once the intellect's convinced, no more thinking required. Put it in the feeling of existence. And this is where meditation / mindfulness comes in. Why meditate? To realize your true self needs no meditation. That's one reason to meditate. When you first start meditating and you're not into non-duality, you'll think, I'm a person meditating. Once you realize your true self needs no meditation, nothing more to do. But what meditation is truly good for, as this egoic self, cultivating the feeling of mindfulness. When I meditate, I just sit there. I don't focus on my breath or anything. I just go straight into the feeling of existence, the feeling of being, the feeling of knowing. Why do I do that? It's a practice for this egoic self to anchor its attention in the present moment, into the feeling of existence. Why do I do that? Once you practice it in a controlled environment, all it is mindfulness. When you're living day to day, that's the only place you need to anchor your attention. Feeling of existence. In other words, what I'm saying, guys, is here's how I live day to day. I'm intellectually convinced of my true self and the illusion of free will. I don't have to think about it anymore. So where does all my attention go? Into the feeling of existence. I just watch life happen like a movie. That's why people have told me, you're very perceptive. You notice a lot. You know why? Because all my attention isn't caught up in thinking about my life. It's in the moment. Noticing people, noticing things, noticing little changes. You're free to watch the movie when all this chatter is stopped. You know when you're watching a movie or a TV show and someone's constantly talking, you can't focus because they're constantly talking. That's the egoic mind. Shoulda, coulda, woulda. Once it shuts down, all that attention that was here goes into the world. You can just appreciate life. Realize what a miracle it is. Notice the little moments. Why are you safe to do that? Because your attention isn't required in living this life. Focus on the present moment. Focus on the feeling of existence. When a problem arises, trust a solution will come. See, that's another thing. I don't live my life problem free. There's a lot of problems for myself and loved ones. My attention's in the feeling of existence. A problem is experienced. I just trust and know the thought of the solution will come. And if no solution comes, nothing can be done. You need to live in a state of surrender, unknowing, trust. Life is living life. There's a problem, a solution will arise. Don't worry, it will. That's what I'm saying. Live in a state of peace, surrender, acceptance, and realize it's always been the case. Life has always been living life. Anything you're stressed about will have a solution eventually. It will have a solution in a way to fix a problem, or the solution will be it can't be fixed. So accept and move on. That's what's going to get you in the state of peace. So to quickly review, how do you live this life in a state of flow and peace? See through the illusion of identity intellectually. See through the illusion of free will intellectually. That will shut up this thinking mind. Then all this attention that was used for thinking about me and mine, my life, shoulda, coulda, woulda, ongoing thought patterns, anchor it in the body. Then just watch life happen like a movie. And what you'll realize is life has always just been living life. I was free to just watch it happen in the past, but all these ongoing thought patterns told me otherwise. All these thought patterns told me, if you don't think about your life, if you don't really think about this problem, if you don't really freely do the right thing, avoid the wrong thing, all these thoughts clouded that realization. Once the thinking mind is shut up, life has always just been living life, and you can appreciate it while it's happening. All the while knowing life has you covered. Every problem that arises, a solution will arise. And just to quickly end this, I'll make more videos on this topic actually that I'm going to end with. Dealing with people. I are, and always will be introverted. But the issue is when I was younger, I would be in a state of uncomfortableness with people, thinking, what am I going to say next? If they say this, what am I going to say? Constant overthinking, then it makes the interaction awkward. What do I do now with people really quickly? I just show up, ground myself in the feeling of existence, and let the conversation happen. And then the conversation comes out so much more natural, genuine, spontaneous, as opposed to in the past, I would think, what am I going to say to them? In fact, I want to avoid this interaction. I'm not comfortable with these people. Now I just show up, ground myself in the feeling of existence, conversation flows naturally. And take that mindset for all of life. Just show up, trust the process. Life has got you covered. You'll be in a state of flow. You'll be in a state of peace. And that's what we're all seeking for in this life, isn't it? Hope this video helps, guys. See you in the next one.